Romell Broom, State, Ohio 2-hour agony during botched execution. On September 15, 2009, Romell Broom's lethal injection was delayed for 2 hours as executioners repeatedly failed to find a vein. His execution was ultimately halted, and he lived for years longer than originally intended. Romell Broom's encounters with the law began early, marked by a string of juvenile offenses. But it was in 1975 that his actions turned darker, leading to convictions for serious assault and robbery. After spending nearly a decade in prison, he was paroled in 1984, only to reoffend within months. In September that year, Broom attempted to abduct a 12-year-old girl and days later, abducted 14-year-old Trina Middleton, tragically ending her life. His final arrest came after a failed abduction in December 1984, when brave bystanders helped authorities track him down. Broom's trial left little doubt about his guilt. Eyewitness testimonies and circumstantial evidence painted a clear picture. Though he offered to plead guilty for a lighter sentence, prosecutors pursued the death penalty. In December 1985, he was found guilty of aggravated murder and sentenced to death. Decades later, a DNA test failed to exonerate him, merely suggesting that a few other individuals might share similar profiles. Courts upheld his conviction, and Broom remained one of Ohio's most infamous death row inmates. On September 15, 2009, officials tried to carry out Broom's execution by lethal injection. Yet after 18 agonizing attempts to find a suitable vein, the process was called off. No lethal drugs ever entered his system. Rather than abandoning the effort, Ohio set a new execution date, June 17, 2020. Broom and his attorneys launched a fierce legal battle, arguing that subjecting him to another execution attempt would violate his constitutional rights. Despite public outcry and legal objections, courts remained firm. The trauma of surviving an execution haunted Broom. Every day on death row became a relentless cycle of anxiety, fear, and dread. He even wrote a book about his survival after the execution. His lawyers argued that re-executing him would constitute cruel and unusual punishment, citing both physical and psychological suffering. However, the Ohio Supreme Court disagreed. As Justice Judith and Lanzinger wrote, because Broom's life was never at risk since the drugs were not introduced, it would not shock the public's conscience to allow the state to carry out Broom's execution. Broom remained trapped between life and death for over a decade. In the end, fate intervened before the state could. Romell Broom contracted COVID-19 while incarcerated and passed away in December 2020.